We were talking about Elisha last time, and we were talking about, some of the acts of Elijah and how he sort of represented this Christ figure and how he stood against the oppression happening to Israel at the time, and how God did not let the power of the outside unbelieving world defeat Elijah. And we're moving on to Elijah, who is sort of not a descendant, but follows on the prophetic office of God on behalf of, Israel or Christians or the world, on behalf of all that is good. And we're going to read about the power in which Elisha exhibits for the sake of God. And but before we do that, I want to talk about sort of the promise, the challenge which Elisha has to fulfill. So I'm back in 1 Kings 19, and you have God's revelation to Elijah, and it says in 16, "Also you shall anoint Jehu the son of Nishmi as king over Israel, and Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel Manoah you shall anoint as prophet in your place." So Elisha is coming after Elijah. "And it shall be that whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill. And whoever escapes the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill." So Jehu is a king who's going to come after, and he, I think he turns out to be quite immoral. But what we're seeing is that whoever escapes the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill. So Elisha is going to kill a lot of people here. "Yet I have reserved 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that was not kissed him." So there are 7,000 people in Israel who God is going to preserve. So anyway, I'm just going to talk. I'm starting in chapter 4, and it will we'll see where we go. "A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, 'Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord, and the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves.' So Elisha said to her, 'What shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house?' And she said, 'Your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil.' Then he said, 'Go borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbours, empty vessels, do not gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons, then pour it into those vessels, and set aside the full ones.' So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it in. And now it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said to her son, 'Bring me another vessel.' And he said to her, 'There is not another vessel.' So the oil ceased. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, 'Go sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest.' Now it happened one day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a notable woman, and she persuaded him to eat some food. So it was, as often as he passed by, he would turn in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, 'Look now, I know that this is a holy man of God who passes by us regularly. Please let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed in there for him, and a table and a chair and a lampstand, so it will be whenever he comes to us, he can turn in there.' And it happened one day that he came there, and he turned in to the upper room and lay down there. Then he said to Gehazi, his servants, "Call this Shunammite woman." When he had called her, she stood before him. And he said to him, "Say now to her, Look, you have been concerned for us with all this care. What can I do for you? Do you want me to speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army?" She answered, "I dwell among my own people." So he said, "What then is to be done for her?" And Gehazi answered, "Actually, she has no son and her husband is old." So he said, "Call her." When he had called her, she stood in the doorway. Then he said, "About this time next year you shall embrace a son." And she said, "No, my lord, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant." But the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had told her. And the child grew. Now it happened one day that he went out to his father to the reapers, and he said to his father, my head, my head." So he said to his servants, "Carry him to his mother." When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on his knees till noon, and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, shut the door upon him, and went out. Then she called to her husband and said, "Please send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come back." So he said, "Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath." And she said, "It is well." Then she saddled the donkey and said to her servants, "Drive and go forward. Do not slacken pace for me, unless I tell you." And so she departed and went to the man of God at Mount Carmel. So it was, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to his servant Gehazi, "Look, the Shunammite woman. Please run now to meet her, and say to her, It is well with you. Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child?" And she answered, "It is well." Now when she came to the man of God at the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of God said, "Let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress, and the Lord has hidden it from me, and has not told me." So she said, "Did I ask a son of my Lord? Did I not say, 'Do not deceive me'?" Then he said to Gehazi, "Get yourself ready and take my staff in your hand, and be on your way. If you meet anyone, do not greet him, and if anyone greets you, do not answer him, but lay my staff on the face of the child." And the mother of the child said, "As the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So he arose and followed her. Now Gehazi went on ahead of them, and laid the staff on the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Therefore he went back to meet him, and told him, saying, "The child was not awakened." Then Elisha came into the house. There was the child lying dead on his bed. He went in therefore, shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. And he went up and laid the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hand on his hands. And he stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. He returned and walked back and forth in the house, and again went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, "Call this Shunammite woman." So he called her, and when she came in to him, she said, "Pick up your son." So she went in, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground. Then she picked up her son and went out. And Elisha returned to Gilgal, and there was a famine in the land. Now the sons of the prophets were sitting before him, and he said to his servants, "Put a large pot and boil stew for the sons of the prophets." So one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered from it a lapful of wild gourds, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, though they did not know that they were what they were. Then they served it to the men to eat. Now it happened, as they were eating the stew, that they cried out and said, "Man of God, there is death in the pot." And they could not eat it. So he said, "Then bring some flour." And he put it in the pot, and they said, "Serve it to the people that they may eat." And there was nothing harmful in the pot. Then a man from Baal Shalisha and brought the man of God bread, and the firstfruits, 20 loaves of barley bread, and newly ripened grain in his knapsack. And he said, Give it to the people that they may eat. But his servant said, What shall I set before this 100 men? He said again, Give it to the people that they may eat. Thus says the Lord, They shall eat and have some left over for you. So he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of the Lord. And so these are, you see, he's dealing with the stew in this famine, and he's healing this woman's. Well, first he prophesies that she's going to have a child, and then the child dies, and he brings the child back to life. So he's doing things very much akin to what Jesus was doing. Raising the dead and healing the sick, and dealing with the food, like in the story of the bread, of the 5,000 and the bread and the loaves. Yeah. So if we focus on this one with the woman, well, I suppose there's lots of links to Christ there. God loses his son, God's son dies. So too does this woman lose her son. Perhaps in that way she is able to relate to the feelings of God and what it would be like to lose a son. And then there's also the revelation that the son returns, and in that there's great joy. And I suppose if you know that God can raise your son from death to life, you know that he can do all things. We read about the death of Ben-Hadad because Elisha faces Ben-Hadad, and this is continuing on. I'd mentioned in the beginning how Elisha was going to go on to kill all that Jehu did not kill. So yes, this might be irrelevant. Then Elisha went to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, was sick. And it was, I'm in chapter 8, verse 7. And it was told him, saying, The man of God has come here. And the king said to Hazael, Take a present in your hand, and go to meet the man of God, and inquire of the Lord by him, saying, Shall I recover from this disease? So Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him, of every good thing of Damascus 40 camel loads. And he came and stood before him, and said, Your son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, has sent me to you, saying, Shall I recover from this disease? And Elisha said to him, Go, say to him, You shall certainly recover. However, the Lord has shown me that he will really die. Then he set his countenance in a stare until he was ashamed, and the man of God wept. And Hazael said, Why is my Lord weeping? He answered, Because I know that the evil that you do to the children of Israel, their strongholds you will set on fire, and their young men you will kill with the sword, and you will dash their children and rip open their women with child. So Hazael said, But what is your servant, a dog, that he should do this gross thing? And Elisha answered, The Lord has shown me that you will become king over Syria. And he departed from Elisha and came to his master, who said to him, What did Elisha say to you? And he answered, He told me you would surely recover. But it happened on the next day that he took a thick cloth and dipped it in water and spread it over his face, so that he died. And Hazael reigned in his place. So Ben-Hadad is dying from shame here over the terrible things which he has done to Israel. And where Elijah had previously contended against him and condemned his sin, though Elijah did not see it, it has had such an effect that when Elisha comes to speak to Ben-Hadad, there is such heaviness of heart that he puts the thick cloth over his head and drowned himself. And this leads on to Jehu, who continues this sort of chaotic, anarchist, evil regime terrorizing people of Israel. And that is ultimately the legacy of the Book of Kings, or the story of the Book of Kings, that even though the society and the situation is dire and hopeless, people of God are still there, and they are still trying to restore the kingdom, not to the extent that they're necessarily going to make it into a land of milk and honey, but there are great works which are happening in that time, and there is still peace to be found despite the corruption and complete tyranny of the age, as in the example with the woman and the son. Yeah, we'll finish here. So, chapter 13, verse 14. Elisha had become sick with the illness of which he would die. Then Joash, the king of Israel, came down to him and wept over his face and said, "O my father, the chariots of Israel and their horsemen." And Elisha said to him, "Take a bow and some arrows." So he took himself a bow and some arrows. Then he said to the king of Israel, "Put your hand on the bow." So he put his hand on it, and Elisha put his hands on the king's hands. And he said, "Open the east window." And he opened it. Then Elisha said, "Shoot." And he shot. And he said, "The arrow of the Lord deliverance, and the arrow of the deliverance of Syria. For you must strike the Syrians at Aphek, till you have destroyed them." Then he said, "Take the arrows." So he took them. And he said to the king of Israel, "Strike the ground." So he struck 3 times and stopped. And the man of God was angry with him. And he said, "You should have struck 5 or 6 times, then you would have struck Syria till you had destroyed it. But now you will strike Syria only 3 times. Then Elisha died, and they buried him. And the raiding bands from Moab invaded the land in the spring of the year. So it was as they were burying a man, that suddenly they spied a band of raiders, and they put the man in the tomb of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood on his feet. And Hazael, king of Syria, oppressed Israel all the days of Jehoahaz. But the Lord was gracious to them, and had compassion on them, and regarded them, because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and would not yet destroy them or cast them from his presence. Now Hazael, king of Syria, died. Then Ben-Hadad his son reigned in his place, and Joash the son of Jehoahaz recaptured from the hand of Ben-Hadad, the son of Hazael, the cities which he had taken out of the hand of Jehoahaz his father by war. 3 times Joash defeated him and recaptured the cities of Israel. So Elisha is ultimately overtaken by Syrians, Moab raids, which is a difference between what happens to Elisha, who goes up on a chariot of fire. Perhaps the reason that Elisha goes up in a chariot of fire is because he fulfilled the will of God. Which is to suggest that perhaps Elisha didn't. But that chariot of fire stands as a sign of how great a prophet Elijah was, and it speaks to the coming of a king who will overcome the trials of that time, and such a king who will transcend all time and be a shining emblem for the salvation of every man in every instance. God, I am not feeling particularly up to the challenge, up to the fight at the moment, but bless me and help me out and do the work. That I may be glorified in your presence. Lord, if I be tempted or tired out or worn down by the trials of my time, of the hordes that come against me, be there to strengthen me and to lead me to calm waters and give me the necessities I need to continue to be alive, or one of your children, or able to do what it is that you want me to do. And in the times that I am not doing what you want me to do, lead me back gently if possible, but I guess otherwise, sometimes it's good that you are fierce with us, and sometimes we deserve it. But lead me back nonetheless to a place where I ought to be. I take some time, Lord, to pray for your satisfaction, for your legacy, for your the fact that you are real, that we do not pray to you because you are some distant emblem, but because you are a historical truth, and because you have come into the world and taught us love and charity and humanity, that we may live as you sought for us to live and do as you sought for us to do, that we have been given the answers, that we have no cause for despondency, that we are led to be people of God, not people living in division and derision and causing pestilence and famine for other people and warring against one another and being violent and lustful and unsavoury. I hope I have not deceived anyone with my teaching. I don't feel as if it was exactly excellent. And I pray for everyone listening that they may have the discernment to seek the truth for themselves rather than just idly listening to people who babble on. I pray for the sick and I pray for the needy. I pray that you may show yourself to those who need you most, and you will raise the dead to life and restore us to the joy of your salvation. Give me grace, give me peace, give me strength, give me love. I pray in your name. In Jesus' name. Amen.